Hi everyone, welcome to our 8th webinar where I'll talk about a new effective way of reading aloud to kids. This is called Dialogic Reading. The recording of this webinar will also be available on our YouTube channel after the session. Don't forget to check out all of our previous webinars whenever you have time. You can even subscribe to our channel. Just look for Smart Kidz Club without any spaces. Here's what I'll cover in the first 15-20 minutes. What is dialogic reading and why is it effective? What is crowd? What is PEER+PA? And Smart Kidz Club's dialogic reading category. And lastly, we'll take the questions and answers at the end. Now, Dr. Grover Whitehurst, a child development expert who also served as director of the Institute of Education Sciences at the US Department of Education, helped develop a program called Dialogic Reading in the 1980s. Usually when we read aloud to a child, they listen. In contrast, dialogic reading involves you and your child having a dialogue or a conversation around the text you are reading. This includes talking about new words, improving verbal fluency by pronouncing and practicing the new words that you come across, introducing different parts of the story, and developing narrative skills where you help the child become the teller of the story. In dialogic reading, you, the parent and the adult, becomes the listener, the questioner, the audience for the child. Dialogic reading is interactive. It is child-centered, where the child does more talking and thinking than the adult. Also, there are discussions and questions throughout the text, not just at the end. Dialogic reading has also shown to be effective for children at all levels, not just young kids. Why is dialogic reading suddenly becoming popular again? Now, we already know the importance of reading aloud to your kids. I've talked about this in my very first webinar, how reading aloud to kids builds literacy, reading skills, and it also improves behavior and attention. But many recent studies have shown the enhanced effectiveness of interactive reading or dialogic reading. Studies show that children who have been read to dialogically are substantially ahead of children who have been read to traditionally on tests of language development. Children can jump ahead by several months in just a few weeks of dialogic reading. And these effects were found to be valid with hundreds of children in areas as geographically different as New York, Tennessee, and Mexico, in settings as different as homes, preschools, daycare centers, and with children from economic backgrounds ranging from poverty to affluence. Now, because of its effectiveness across all the different demographics and settings, dialogic reading is considered as a new effective way to read aloud with young children. Now, there are 3 levels of questions in a traditional implementation of dialogic reading. Now, in level 1, you ask the very basic questions which are relating to what is being read or seen in the text or the story. This could be also related to new vocabulary or the new words that the child comes across. Level 2 are open-ended questions that try to get the child's feedback and encourage the child to share what he or she is thinking about and make meaning from the text. Now, level 3 are the more advanced questions that distance the child from the text that they are reading and connect that story to their own life and own life's experiences. Now, there are many different strategies that can be used for these 3 levels of questioning, but we will discuss the 2 most popular strategies, and they are known by the acronyms CROWD, C-R-O-W-D, and PEER-PA. CROWD, C-R-O-W-D, is used to remember the types of questions to ask in a dialogic reading. Here is what each letter in CROWD stands for. C stands for completion. Now, a completion question would ask the child to complete a sentence with a fact or as per the story. You leave a blank at the end of a sentence and get the child to fill it in. These are typically used in books with rhyme or books with repetitive phrases. R in crowd stands for recall. Recall question makes the child remember or recall an important part of the story from their memory. These are questions about what happened in a book a child has already read. O in crowd stands for open-ended. Now, open-ended questions focus on the pictures in the books. They work best for books that have rich and detailed illustrations, where you ask your child, what does he think of the picture? What is it that he sees in the picture? What's happening? What's going to happen next? These type of questions help a child's imagination and attention to detail. The W in crowd stands for what questions, like begin with what, where, when, why, and how, and also focused on pictures. These questions help the child learn new vocabulary. For example, you can say, what do you see in the picture? Why is that cat climbing on that branch? When do you think this is all happening? The last letter D in crowd stands for distancing questions. These questions ask children to relate the pictures or words in the book to their own experiences outside the book. So this is nothing related to the book, but relating the book's text to their own life. For example, when reading the SKC book, The Big Cat, you will ask a distancing question like, have you ever had a cat as a pet? What color is your cat? What animal would you like as a pet? What would you do if your pet cat climbs a tree? So these are distancing questions that help the child relate to their own life and experiences. Now, while crowd is helpful for remembering the types of questions to ask, the main goal is to have a dialogue about the text, have a conversation with your child. Now, the PEER strategy, the PEER strategy, can be used to help you encourage deeper responses. Now, here's what PEER stands for. P stands for prompt. So you prompt the child to say something about the book. So when, for example, if this is the picture that they are seeing, you can prompt the child to see, what do you see in the sky? E in PEER stands for evaluate. You then evaluate the child's response as being correct, or if anything else could be added to it. So if the child says, oh, I see the sun in the sky, then you evaluate the response or the answer and ask him, what color is the sun? What else can you see in the sky? So E is for expand, the next E in PEER. After you evaluate the response, you expand your child's response by rephrasing and adding information to it if it is applicable. So like I said, you can say, yes, I see the sun. There is a sun in the sky, but what else do you see? There also see two clouds in the sky. R is for repeat. In the end, you repeat the prompts to make sure the child has learned from the expansion. So an extension of PEER is the PEER+PA, where P in PA stands for praise and A stands for apply. So you could, after the PEER sequence, after prompting, evaluating, expanding, and repeating the child's response, you praise your child for engaging in the conversation and help your child apply the response to his own life so that it becomes more meaningful. Now let's try out the PEER sequence with this page. Like I said, this is the book, I See the Sun, in our Dialogic Reading category. You can prompt your child to say something about the book, like, what do you see in the sky? So if your child answers the sun, you evaluate their answer, expand, yes, the kids see the yellow sun and clouds in the blue sky. Then you repeat the prompt, what do kids see in the sky? The child will answer, the kids see the yellow sun and the clouds in the blue sky. And finally, you use the praise and apply to your child's response by saying, that's right, the kids see the yellow sun and the clouds in the blue sky, good job. So praising is very important. When you praise the child for engaging in a conversation, your child will be more likely to want to have a conversation about each and every page in the book. You could also add another prompt like, do you see the sun in the sky every day? What else do you see in the sky? So your child will answer, I see birds in the sky. Sometimes I also see a hot air balloon in the sky. So these are all the ways in which you can engage in a dialogue around the book. So let's look at our dialogic reading category. Smart Kidz Club has a separate category of books, which we call the dialogic reading category. We have around 14 books in this category. These books have discussion prompts based on the crowd strategy that makes life easy for you to have a dialogue with your child around the book. You will have ready-made questions and prompts that you could use without even having to spend time thinking about it. Remember that the dialogic reading is not only for books in this category. The books in this category have the dialogic prompts, but you can have or engage in dialogic reading with all the other books. Once you get used to asking questions to your child and engaging in a conversation around the book with the crowd and the peer strategy, you can use this strategy of dialogic reading with all the other books, and especially the storybooks with beautiful pictures and illustrations with your child. All our books in our library have pictures and illustrations and photos so that all kinds of prompts are relevant over here. Now, here is a look at our dialogic reading category with 14 books. Now, in addition to the crowd strategy, peer sequence, here are some other interesting ways to talk about the story with your child. So what you can do is you can discuss pictures with your child, what they see, what they missed the first time they saw, anything in real life that looks like the picture, anything that they would like to change in the picture. Secondly, you can ask your child to retell the story in their own words. Once your child has read the story or the book, you ask them to narrate the story and tell them in their own words what the book was all about. This is a very common technique we use by many parents and grandparents, but this is another way of engaging in dialogic reading. Then another way is to ask your child to change the story with the same characters. So this is an exercise in creativity and imagination other than dialogic reading. Ask your child to use the same characters and change the story. What happens next? Then another way is to ask your child to narrate an anecdote or an incident that actually happened that reminds them of the story or is similar to the story in some way. And you leave it completely open-ended. This is where the child uses his imagination and tries to think and recall an incident in real life that happened to them that reminds them of the story in some way. And lastly, ask your child about any real life people that come to their mind while reading the story, or any characters in the story that remind them of real life people they have met or know that are similar or show similar traits of the character in the book. So in doing all these, encourage your child to use new vocabulary words they might have learned from the story or the book that they just read. To sum it up, having a dialogue with your child and interacting with your child around a book or a story will help your child gain reading and comprehension skills, build vocabulary, and improve their communication skills at a much faster rate than traditional reading aloud. Now, this is why dialogic reading, kids who were engaged in dialogic reading showed much faster and quicker jump in their language tests. Just 4 weeks, there was a difference. Now, this will help you spend time constructively with your child and also help your child associate a positive experience with reading, and which eventually is what you want to do. You want to develop a love of reading. So whenever you have time, engage in dialogic reading with your child. And don't forget to use the crowd strategy and peer sequence in order to make dialogic reading highly effective for your child. Now, all the books in the Smart Kidz Club read along with word highlighting, and our dialogic reading category will help you work through these new effective way of reading aloud with your kids. So reading aloud is good, but dialogic reading with a conversation around the book is super, and it will help improve your child at a much faster rate. That's all I have for today. So remember, dialogic reading, the crowd prompts, and the peer sequence. Our dialogic reading category will help you with the prompts and the questions in the beginning. And once you get used to asking the questions and the kind of questions that you can ask, you can use that with all the other books in our extensive and varied library. Thanks for attending today. The topic for our next webinar is going to be 1 million word gap. Explain. Now, what is a 1 million word gap? How is it relevant to reading? I'll talk about it next time, and I will see you at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time next Saturday, 12 December. Bye for now. We will now take your questions.